Hey everybody, I am really excited for today's video. I'm going to be making a cupcake based on one of my favorite movies as a kid, Air Bud. Air Bud released on August 1st, 1997, which means it turns 20 years old today. And if you've never seen it, it's the Disney movie about the golden retriever who can play basketball. His owner ends up being a new kid in school and he doesn't fit in. And then they discover that this dog has this great talent and he makes all sorts of friends, and it's just a really cute, feel-good movie. And I couldn't believe it when I found out that it was going to be 20. But I'm really excited to celebrate its birthday. And let's get started on this recipe. This is basically just going to be a quick recap. I'm going to use the same recipe as my Power Rangers cupcakes. I'll retype the recipe in the description box so you can get all the quantities, but go ahead and check that video out too. It's really simple. It's a small batch recipe. This recipe only makes 5 vanilla cupcakes. So we're going to start off with your flour, baking powder, salt, mix that all together, set it to the side. The first thing that goes in your main mixing bowl is your sugar and 1 egg, and then that gets all whisked together. Once that's all well combined, in goes your melted butter and vanilla. Alright, now you're going to do half of your dry ingredients. Just eyeball it. All of your milk, and the remaining of your dry ingredients. And that's it. We're not going to color this, we're not going to flavor this, they're going to be plain vanilla cupcakes. So as far as you're concerned, that batter is done. I've got my pan with my 5 cupcake liners. I chose this bright metallic blue to match their Timberwolves uniform. And you're just going to distribute this batter evenly. And I've already got my oven preheated, so once this is done, they're just going to go right in. In the oven. Alright, these have baked for 13 minutes and they need to be completely cool before we move on to the next step. So I'm going to take them out of the pan and leave them on the cooling rack, and then once they're cool enough to handle, put them in the fridge. And while we're waiting for that, we can move on to our fondant decorations. Okay, so I have my fondant. I did have to soften it just a little in the microwave, and then we're going to get to coloring. I'm going to start off with a little. I have a pretty small piece anyway because I'm only going to do the 5 cupcakes. Obviously, if you're going to make more, you're going to need a little more. Or you can buy this pre-colored. Alright, that's actually a pretty smooth, even color already, but I'm going to add just a tiny bit of brown to make it a little bit more of a darker orange, a little bit more realistic as to what's on an actual basketball. Just a tiny bit to start. But if your fondant starts to get like this, where it's tearing instead of, staying smooth, and if it's not really going back together as you're folding it, you need a little bit more glycerin, or you can just add the tiniest bit more shortening. I would just rub a little more shortening on your hands and then knead that into the fondant, which I'm going to do now because this needs to be salvaged just a little. So I have my fondant dyed to the color that I want. Just added a tiny bit of brown so it wasn't quite so bright. It kind of darkened it and dulled down the orange a little. And it's smooth and way more pliable than it was before, so we're going to roll this out. If you're going to be doing this a lot, you can buy a textured mat, or if you've got kids around the house, you can use a toy basketball. You can go buy a cheap one, cut it open, and use that to kind of give your fondant the texture that you want. I just have a textured paper towel here. And that's going to give, it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but it gives me just a little bit of texture. Get closer to that bumpy look that we want. Now I'm going to cut out my circles. Again, this size is basically at your discretion. If you're going to be doing a bunch of them, you can make them smaller so your fondant goes further. You can make them bigger to cover the whole top of the cupcake. That way you can worry a little bit less on how pretty your frosting looks underneath. Alright, so I have my circles cut out. I'm going to take a slightly larger circle and just gently make an indentation. And that's going to be my guidelines for where I can pipe my frosting. Alright, I have my fondant basketballs all cleaned up. I just dusted off the cornstarch with a paper towel, and then I pressed it one more time with my textured paper towel to give it a little bit more texture after I got it all cleaned off. And since I'm doing such a small amount, I've got a little bit of black royal icing in a parchment cone. Feel free to use a piping bag with a small piping tip, or a Ziploc bag with the tip snipped off. It's up to you. That part's going to be really, really part of your personal preference. Now I'm just going to follow those guidelines that we made and then do one straight line across the middle to get our basketballs. There we go. Now I'm just going to set these off to the side to dry. Now our cupcakes are cool and it's time to fill them. If you've never seen the movie or if it's been 20 years, Josh eventually wins Buddy's trust by feeding him pudding cups, vanilla pudding cups. So that's how we're going to fill our cupcakes, which is why he wanted these to be completely cool. Otherwise the pudding would have just melted into the cake and it would have been delicious but not quite a filled cupcake. It would have been just a little mushy. So stick your knife into the cupcake at a slight angle. That's going to give you a cone-shaped hole in the middle. There's your little cone. And just set those off to the side. You can munch on them later. Alright, and then start piping in your pudding. This is a little thicker than I remembered it being, so just work with it a little. if you want, you can actually take these, cut the cone part off and leave just a little lid. And put that over your filling. That'll kind of keep your frosting and filling from running in together. I don't usually do that, but that's just me. It is an option. Those are all filled. And now for our frosting, same thing. I'm just using the very basic recipe from the Power Rangers video. I'll put the recipe in the description box again. But this time we're not going to separate it and color it. We're going to leave it plain vanilla. If you want to take the cupcakes or the frosting to the next level, you can use vanilla bean or vanilla bean paste. That just gives it just a little bit of a richer vanilla flavor. And piped. We've got our dried, they're not completely dry, but they're dry enough to handle. They aren't going to melt in your hand. And just stick one on top of each cupcake. And there you go. You've got your basketball themed cupcakes for our Air Bud movie night. It is on Hulu. That's not a plug. Trust me, the last thing anyone wants to do is sponsor me. I just really love the video. I think it would be really fun. Grab some friends, grab some snack cups, grab some SpaghettiOs, and you've got yourself a movie night. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any more ideas for theme treats, that's my favorite kind to make, so please leave them in the comments below. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.